What's up, guys? I just wanted to cut a quick intro on today's episode, my first ever guest episode. Couple housekeeping items. First of all, thank you again for the support, the pictures, the texts, the emails, the phone calls. Everybody's out cleaning their garage apparently, and I think it's great. Speaking of garages, guy with the shithole garage. It's on his to-do list after the week of spring break. We'll see if it gets done. I've asked for pictures of the garage before and after, mostly before, just to show you guys like what an absolute shithole it gets to be. A little hesitant, I get it. Maybe we'll get some pics. Three, no big tech updates. I have a mic cover for the microphone. I got a splitter so we can do this guest episode. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully we can build further guest episodes after that. So speaking of guest, today we're going to talk to Chris Uglum, who's the president and wealth manager of Pivot Wealth Strategies. He's a local dad. He's a U.S. veteran. His mom was an emergency room nurse, Cubs fan, all-around cool guy. He's offered to talk to us today about, defining some financial terms and understanding more about our retirement, mostly in the private sector, how our money can make money, and just give us a better basic understanding of financial terminology. It was something that I tried on my own to understand. I thought as a man that would be a good thing to do, is understand how my money could make money. And then I've said this many times, I can do some plumbing around my house, but I know when it's time to call a plumber. Same with my investment life. I knew some basic things, but I knew it was time to call somebody else, and Chris is the guy I called. We're not looking to get anything out of this episode. If he gets some extra foot traffic, that's great, but he's willing just to sit down and kind of discuss with us the basic information that we need to know about our investment life. Pretty good episode, I think, so let me know how it goes, and let me know if you like it, because I need to build future guest episodes, and I think it'll be a fun time. So make sure you give me feedback on this one. As always, work hard, be kind. Bye. Now we're live. I should have done the old director cut. Sorry, man. What's up?
Nothing, man.
Hey,
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think that this is going to provide some value to people like me who just don't really understand your world.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So Chris Uglum. I'm the president and CEO of Pivot Wealth Strategies, located here in Adel, Iowa. Been around since for many years, since 2010. In West Des Moines for a time, downtown Des Moines. And about that COVID time, we decided to break our downtown stay, and so since I'd moved to Adel, we came here. So yeah, from Iowa originally. Graduated from the UNI. Spent some time in the military, and yeah, that's a little bit about me. I have a wife and two kids, and just making it go. One's out of school or in college, and the other one's got a couple of years to prove himself. See if we can get him graduated from high school too.
Just out there doing it, right? Just being a dad, running a business.
Yeah.
Why'd you move the business? Why'd you downsize the business and come back to Adel?
Yeah, it wasn't really a downsize in terms of the clients that I work with. My clients are really stacked all over the country, and a lot of that has to do with the industry groups that I get involved with things like agriculture and that type of thing. But downtown, of course, we had COVID, and that was also right about the time that we had some rioting issues, and you can only get your door kicked in so long, and you start thinking about, well, maybe I should change where I do things, and of course, the drive. I know that you get to do that, but there's something to be said. I live in Adel, so it just seemed like an easy fit with the clients being all over. I do a lot of video work and phone calls and and travel. So yeah, so I could really be anywhere, honestly.
How long did you stay in the military?
So 6 years, yep. Just out of high school, went did some the initial training as a firefighter, and then wanted to go to school at the same time. Was given the option to do the Air National Guard, so I went out to the National Guard, worked my fire shifts out there, and then just did deployments as they came up. Just took my schoolwork with me,
sure.
and so got to see a lot of parts of the world, which is interesting. Being a fireman, it's a lot of I always say it feels like a lot of waiting around for planes to crash. I don't know if that's the healthiest.
That's one way to look at it. We have a large, I would say a sizable probably firefighter group that listens to this show.
Cool.
This show is all about my experience in EMS, but public safety in general. So
Awesome.
Anything you say about your firefighting career, I'm sure that people will get. So, but on behalf of everybody listening, if nobody's ever said it, thank you for your service. And you're a UNI grad. You're a Panther. My wife's a Panther, so we got that going for us.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how we got here. So, back in July, my employer sold out, and I don't really know how healthcare conglomerates work and how they buy hospitals and healthcare names. But either way, so we had, to fill out new W-2s, and then came the old 401k option, which my business was managed through Fidelity, and I think they do a great job. This is not an anti-anything. But we started getting emails that said, hey, listen, you got a choice. You can bring your 401k with you to the new employer, or you can roll it over into an IRA. And so for a lot of us, we didn't really know what that meant, and probably still don't know what that means. But if you would get the email, you would say that you have a 401k option and a 403b option. Can you explain the difference between those two? And did I read it right? Is a 403b a retirement plan?
Yeah, so you're right. You're hitting on several points there that are somewhat part of the same discussion and sort of outside. The third option that was available to you, whether they made it clear or not, is you could have just cashed the whole thing out, paid taxes and penalties, and ran for the hills.
Sure.
Not usually my recommendation when you're trying to.
Well, listen, the amount of money that was in mine, I wasn't going to get far up that hill.
Well, fair enough. A lot of people will do that though if they've got a couple $1,000s in there, instead of trying to do the whole rollover,
sure.
all that stuff. They'll just pay the tax and move on. But when you've got you've been contributing into it for a long time, and that's your retirement. Look, 401ks are the number one retirement savings vehicle for Americans today. That's where the money's going, and you mentioned Fidelity. They're very commonly used as a 401k hub, if you will,
sure.
For putting these plans together. It's for the companies that develop them for their employees. There's a lot of things that go into getting everything set up to. The contribution amounts and the cost structures within the forum. Who's going to pay for that? Is the company going to pay for it, or is some of it going to be trickled down into to the employee? But the thing about it is that if and I'm out talking to people all the time, and I think one of the most common things that I hear from people is that here I've got this 401k and it's my number one retirement savings vehicle, but yet I'm kind of left out in the weeds, to figure this thing out. I know a few things here and there, and about stocks and bonds, but I really don't. It's not their area of expertise. They're out, flying in helicopters or farming fields or whatever. It's not their. It's not what they went to school to study, and so.
Does it only grow based on your contribution?
No. So that again, we could spend a lot of time with this, but when so I'll get to that in a second. But with the separation, as you mentioned. When a company is selling out or then something's got to be done with that 401k plan, right? So your dollars are in there. That company is selling out. Their employees are going somewhere else. So to your point, you can have the option. You can just have those dollars get it into the new 401k plan, or you can do what they non-taxable, non-penalized rollover into your IRA, or as I said, the nuclear option, cash it out, pay the taxes, and run for
Bury it in your yard.
Yeah, right. So most people that I talk to, they'll do some looking into the cost structure, what they're paying inside their 401k, but most people when they like the idea of being able to get that money out of 401k into IRA, because they can go to their financial advisor and have them help them, construct it in such a way that makes sense given their life.
Sure.
So whereas with leaving it in a 401k, I think people say, well, I'm kind of relegated to a target date fund, or I don't really know what I'm doing. It tells me how old I am and kind of where my risk assessment should be, but is that really what my risk assessment is, or is that just based on everybody in the world my age,
right,
type of thing?
Which is what I did, as I looked at the options and said, option one, keep it. So I'm lucky because, and most of the listeners I think are in like municipal police and fire pensions and IPRS pensions, which are great pensions and pretty locked in, right?
Sure.
Like there's not a lot of adjustment you're going to do with those. And I'm lucky because I have 20 years in IPRS. I have a 401k now through the new employer, and then luckily I just chose the option with my 401k from the previous owner of my company, if that's how you say it, and rolled it over to an IRA, not really understanding what that meant. But I knew that I could take it out of there and put it somewhere, and then later I could try to figure out what that meant. For those listening, we're right next to the highway, so that was a rock truck that just went by. So, and we're also right next to the ambulance garage, so if you hear some tones, that's what's going on. And so once I did that, and so they give you the option on the website. You can either totally manage your IRA on your own. We can split it halvesies, like we'll give you some tips and tricks for us, maybe for free or a small percentage, I don't remember, or we'll just manage it for you. And so I went down the rabbit hole of trying to manage it myself, and pretty early in that process got pretty lost. So let's start with, is there an advantage to keeping the 401k? Well, first of all, what's the difference between that and a 403b?
There really isn't. 403bs are just a tax coding issue. 401ks exist within private companies and in business. 403bs are usually, like your teachers, public service people.
Two different names for the same thing?
Basically. They're treated exactly the same.
So if we were in just slang talk, a 401k universally means a retirement fund.
Right.
And a 403b is lesser known, I think, but still means retirement fund.
Same thing.
Okay,
yeah,
so
basically.
Let's say option one for the people. Let's say is there an advantage to keeping the old 401k and rolling it into the new employer's 401k option and just keeping it the way it is?
Yeah, and again, that comes down to that's very plan specific.
Probably how close you are to retirement, how much money's in it, how much your contribution is.
The costs, how much help they're going to give you. I mean, a lot of these 401k plans will say, for a 1% fee or 2% fee or whatever, we'll help manage this portfolio for you. But what is actually going on there? I mean, a lot of times it's not a face-to-face meeting. It's not an in-depth meeting.
Sure.
It's just a guy that shows up at your office and gal, and you tell him some things about yourself, and then and he comes up with an allocation, and then maybe you don't hear from that guy for another year.
And that plan is probably the same for a lot of people. Like it's a cookie cutter type of thing, probably.
What I have seen, because of just the Department of Labor rules around 401ks and the fiduciary responsibilities, a lot of it is we want to protect you from yourself, right? So if we don't let you get any chalk on your cleats, you can't go tumbling over the edge. Yeah. So let's just keep you on a narrow path, and so some 401ks are better with this than others. I think if you talk to most people that are in 401ks, they feel like they don't know what they're invested in. They don't feel like they're getting a lot of advice and a lot of help. They're not having regular meetings with their, if it's a financial advisor.
Sure.
They're just kind of out in la la land doing it on their own.
Okay. So the big advantage to finding and identifying a personal finance manager is that intimate relationship where, like, I can call you and be like, hey, man, what's going on with my account? I just see a bunch of red all of a sudden, and last week I saw a bunch of green. I'm not real smart, but I got to tell you that red's probably bad. Yeah. What's going on? And that is a huge advantage too.
Well, moreover, that these things don't occur in a vacuum. What you're doing with your investments and your retirement planning affects what you do with your taxes. Can affect what you do with your risk management and your succession planning. Things like life insurance and all your planning elements. Am I going to have enough money to do what I want to do when I retire?
Sure.
And a 401k plan, it's just like we're just taking one element of that and we're trying to help you as much as possible, but it just sits in that vacuum, and so there's no other really planning discussions going on. People need to really understand the impact of assembling a team. You need to get your team together, and so maybe that's your financial advisor that puts that team together
Sure.
for you. Whoever it is, you got to have that team so that the left hand knows what the right's doing.
I can tell you that several years ago, a buddy of mine called me and he's like, "Hey, man, can I ask you what your financial plan is?" And we're middle-aged men with kids and jobs, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, my wife just texted me and said maybe not get gas till Friday, so I feel like maybe I'm probably doing it wrong. So I don't really have much to offer. I don't have much to offer this conversation. But then, you kind of learn the game a little bit, and you're like, oh, I need to do some big kid stuff here. I need to do some adult things with how I'm spending my money and how I'm making my money and how my money works for me. So, again, public safety's lucky. We have a pretty Loctite pension system, but for the private people. So I took my 401k option, and I said, put it in an IRA. Just by luck of the draw, that's the button I clicked. Okay? And then it sat there.
No taxes, no penalties as a result of that.
Right.
I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to get taxed or I'm
right.
going to be penalized. It's just a like-to-like account transfer. 401k is the same thing as an IRA, except IRA is individually done. 401k is done through an institution. That's it.
Okay.
The tax treatment's the same.
That's a great definition. And so what I did is I clicked the button that says, this is what I want. After weeks of trying to figure out what to do. And this is before I'd called you or talked to you at the football game. And I said, so I did it. Well, then it just sat there. And so I didn't realize that after I clicked the button to move it to an IRA, that now I had to do something with it. Otherwise, it was just sitting there not making any money. Didn't realize that now I have to try to pick where I want my money to be invested in through a very broad picture of domestic stocks and overseas stocks and currency and all kinds of stuff, that was the overwhelming part.
Mm.
So step one was moving it. So why is moving it from your 401k to an IRA the better decision? Or is it the better decision?
That's going to be on a case-by-case basis, because you also have to look at things, you have to look at the costs associated with doing that. And so I always encourage people to figure, 401ks have been, a lot's changed in that industry, and so they're pretty forthcoming about what they charge, how much of those fees that are sent up by the 401k plan are pushed down to the individual, and then the actual funds that you invest in themselves can often have internal expenses on the mutual funds. Now, if you move that money into an IRA and you're just going to leave it, so like in your case, it's a Fidelity 401k, now it's a Fidelity IRA, and you're gonna manage it on your own. Well, you're probably out for most of those fees, except for the mutual fund expenses, which you need to pay attention to. So, if you're a guy that can make sense of the financial markets, and you feel like you got a good handle on that, and then run with it. Do that. Manage your IRA. If you think, well, that I know a little bit to be dangerous, but this is not my area of expertise, or I don't have the time or desire to do it, even if I could. Then it starts to make sense to look at finding a financial advisor, whether that advisor's with Fidelity or whoever, and saying, okay, I need a financial advisor to help me not only with this IRA, but all the other stuff that I mentioned before.
That was where I was at. I was like, it's time to call a plumber.
Right.
What is the difference between a rollover IRA and a Roth IRA that you hear a lot about?
Yeah. So rollover IRA really isn't anything. All that means is that you
took it from one and put it in another.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no when you look at the different when you look at these different vehicles, really what it's talking about is the tax treatments of these accounts. So IRA, 401k, we've already established those are basically the same things. One's administered by a company, the other is administered by an individual. So when you put money into an IRA, you're doing so before tax. So if you, and whether you do that all at once at the end of the year or you do it through a paycheck deduction, you'll notice if you're putting $100 into your 401k, your paycheck doesn't go down by $100 because you're saving the tax that you would have otherwise paid on $100.
Okay.
And so your paycheck, it's not dollar for dollar because of the tax implications.
Okay.
So if you have money in IRA and 401k, you're deferring those taxes until you retire and start taking money out.
Okay.
So when you go to take money out of your IRA and your 401k when you're retired someday, you're going to pay ordinary income tax at the tax rate that you're in at that time. So the old philosophy was, well, when I retire, I'll be in a lower tax rate naturally because I won't be working. And I'll be somewhere near the bottom, and so when I go to take that money out, I'll be in a lower tax rate than when I put it in. Again, that's conventional wisdom that that sort of has just percolated throughout time. Depending on what your view is on the future tax situation in our country, it's quite possible that you might be in a higher tax bracket because overall tax rates may go up. You may be in the same. Just we don't know what's going to happen with taxes. The main thrust here is save money, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. I mean, you get a tax deduction when you put it in, great, and then But here again, when we get into retirement, we'll deal with the taxes then. You don't want to just defer yourself to death. That brings up the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k.
Okay.
So same thing, except money that goes into Roth is done after tax.
Okay.
So now you've already got your paycheck. You've already paid taxes on it. You put your paycheck in your bank, and now you take $200 out of your bank and you put it in your Roth 401k. So that's money you've already paid tax on, so you're not going to pay taxes on it when it comes out. The government has basically given us a gift. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's kind of like it kind of boggles the mind why they continue to do this. Quite frankly, but when you put money into a Roth IRA or Roth 401k, that money now grows unfettered of tax for the rest of your life, the rest of your kids' lives. Once you put that money in there, it just continues to grow, and so.
How does it grow? Grow based on what? Interest rate, market value, what?
Market on the things that you're investing in.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and
a Roth IRA is still diverse into different investments. It's not just like a savings account that accrues interest.
Right.
It gets diversified into investments.
Right. Roth IRA, 401k, IRA, Roth IRA. These are all. Just think of these as buckets. All right. These are just landing buckets. What goes into those buckets is all the same stuff.
Yes.
Whether it's a mutual fund, a stock, an ETF, whatever it is. So it's just the buckets really determine the tax treatment of those accounts. So if you think about it, you start putting money into a Roth IRA, and then you're just aggressively putting money into that, or Roth 401k. and you get 20 years down the road, and all of a sudden you got $1 million in a Roth IRA. That's $1 million that we can now take and feed to you when you're retired. So theoretically we would have pre-tax money in an IRA, and we'd have post-tax money, which would be the Roth IRA, and then we would have cash or resources or whatever. So it really opens up the flexibility of how you pay yourself in retirement, because who knows what you do in retirement. There's a lot of people that find a lot of success in retirement. You open a tire store, next thing you know, they're making more than they ever made as a fireman.
Right.
So that gives us flexibility in terms of getting money out, and it's going to be a high tax year. Well, let's feed ourselves with Roth money.
If I were to take in that 401k, and instead of putting it into what I would call a normal IRA or just an IRA proper, versus putting it into a Roth IRA, would I have been penalized more, because do I have to take that money out with the penalty and then give it to you and say start it, versus rolling it over?
That's a great question. So what you're referring to is what they call a Roth conversion.
Okay.
And so when you do a Roth conversion like that, so you take regular 401k money and roll it into a Roth IRA, you pay taxes at your current tax rate.
Okay.
And once you pay the taxes, then it will grow unfettered of tax.
Yeah. For
the remainder of your life. Roth conversions can be a powerful tool. I always tell people the time to really look at doing that. Well, there's several instances, but if you have a particularly low tax year, that's a good time to think about taking money out of regular IRA, 401k, and getting into Roth, because you're paying less taxes on the taxability there. So.
What are the differences in financial advisors? Like, if somebody's looking for somebody to help them manage this because they can't manage it on their own, is there a difference in people that do this kind of business?
Yeah, so I cut my teeth in the business working for a large institutional bond firm out of Monument, Colorado, just outside of Denver. They trade about $1 billion in fixed income a year or a month, sorry. And I was a wholesaler, so my job was to get on an airplane and fly. So I worked on the institutional side of the business, and my job was to go out and meet with financial guys and help them structure portfolios for their clients, in bonds in particular. So I got a really good view of the industry from the inside out. I always liken it to going to your favorite restaurant and getting a walk through the kitchen.
Seeing how the food's cooked.
Yeah, it's like it all looks good out here. What's going on in the kitchen? And sometimes you get back in that kitchen and you're thinking, I'm not coming back. You know, and so that was a lot of what I experienced. It's like, make sure I don't have anybody on your client list that I know. But so everybody operates a little differently. But there's two main areas. There's the captive groups that are represent one company, and we see in Iowa a lot of, like, Ed Jones would be an example of that. And then you have the independents, and where I sit is on the independent side of the business. So Pivot Wealth Strategies is an independent group. We clear all of our business through a company called LPL Financial. Mm-hmm. We use them as the place where the money's held, our clients' money's held. We don't hold on to money. LPL, they do that. And then they also help with compliance and keeping us running down the middle of the road and a host of other things. Because
you guys are governed by the feds, right? Like, the things that you can do and not do are monitored by the federal government to prevent to prevent you from robbing me, basically.
Right. Correct. Yep. Exactly. And LPL really sits in the middle. I pay them to audit me, to make sure that I'm doing, because the world of finance is changing all the time, right?
Sure.
I mean, geez, it's like, it kind of reminds me actually when I was a fireman. You do something, you do something a certain way for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to redo it. Now you're doing it completely the other way, and it's like, wait a minute. And then eventually you lose track of how you're supposed to do what.
Yeah.
And so what LPL does is they're there to say, you know, this. It's like your crew chief. It's like, okay, this is how we're doing it this week. You know, and so they come in, they audit, and they just make sure that everything, we're doing everything correct. So that if the SEC or Fender walks through the door, you know, everything's in order.
Should people seek out like an individual like you that does this, or is there an advantage to go? Like, I don't really understand. There's people that deal in like really high end finance, like $500 million and more, and so anybody with less than that doesn't qualify to come see me for financial advice. Is there people out there like that? Like, do you have a minimum that you have to work with? Otherwise, you're just not able to take on a client, or your company is not willing to take that client on?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most common questions I get from people. You know, because people make in their heads all kinds of different things about that, and there are, to be sure, there are a lot of firms out there that have stated minimums. You know, you have to have 250,000, otherwise, you know, we won't work with you. I've as a company, I've never had a stated minimum, and I'll tell you why. What I look at when I'm meeting is where is this person having some issues? Where are they not getting the best work? Is there something that I can do that would appreciably affect their situation? And if I can do that, if there's an area for me to do that and make them a raging fan, that's probably a client I want to take, regardless of the amount of money that they're bringing here to invest with me. And the reason I say that is because I've grown my business largely, in large part, by people just like that. People that I'll just give you an example. Years ago, I had a client who was was working at UPS when they went public, and you had all these guys just become instant millionaires, and this guy wanted some help, but he wasn't in that mix, right? So he wasn't one of the ones that took all the money out, but he had some very specific issues related to not only his investing but some tax related issues, and I could see very clearly right away that man, we could have a huge effect on this guy just by tweaking a few things. And he was at a local brokerage house. They were charging him commissions, not really managing anything, to be honest. It was kind of a take the relationship, throw it on a shelf, and when you call in, I'll tap on the keyboard and try to remember who you are.
Sure.
So he wasn't getting a lot of service in that area. But anyway, so we were able to solve those problems for him, and that guy, I'll tell you what, with militaristic zeal, went out and told the rest of the world about what we did for him. And guess who he's talking to? All the guys that got, that were, overnight made millionaires. And so that's why I handle that way. Now, if you come in and you've got just a little bit of money in your portfolio, you're kind of a jerk, and there's nothing I can do to solve your problems, I'm probably going to exit gracefully.
Sure.
So,
and it's probably relative too, right? Like, what's a lot of money to me is maybe not a lot of money to
right.
somebody else.
That's the other reason I don't have stated minimums, because one guy's 50,000 might be another guy's million. I mean,
Sure.
It's just so yeah. To your point, exactly.
Is there a point of diminishing returns? Like, where we're just too late in the game to make a difference, or is it eternal? Like, can you make decisions like this? You're close to retirement. Maybe you want to try to figure out. You want to put all your money on black, and you just want to roll the dice and see if I can double or triple my earnings in a short amount of time, or does it get to a point where you're like, well, you've been investing in 401k for 30 years. There's probably not much more you can do with it.
Well, I mean, there is a difference between investing and gambling for sure, and there, I don't think it's ever too late to get to know and get a sense for where you're at. You know, a lot of people don't. They say, "Oh, I've got $300,000 in my 401k. I'm good to go." But are you? I mean, and I don't know the answer to the question because I don't know how you live. I don't know where you spend money. I don't know. You know, you may spend 200 of that on a new boat for Sailorville.
Sure.
You know, but until I sit down and have a conversation about how you live and how you spend money, you know, that 300 grand might be just fine.
I can tell you, like, you hit on a good point here because when you're in your mid 30s or maybe even early 40s, like, retirement scared me to the point where I was just probably not interested in knowing the number. Like you would see your contribution percentage and your company would say you need to do more, otherwise maybe you're not going to live the way you want to live, and you're like, I'll be fine. Like, and then you get older and you're like, am I really going to be fine? Like, that's kind of a big deal. But I didn't want somebody to tell me bad news. So is that like one of the biggest things that stop people from investigating their financial future, is the fear that somebody's going to tell them, hey, you're 48 years old and you're not doing enough. You're not going to be able to retire well unless X.
I think it's all, it's a lot of it's psychology. Yeah. I mean, it's why, you know, people don't want to go to the doctor, you know, when they feel their heart.
They don't want to get the bad news.
The missed beats, you know,
yeah, sure.
And they assume, you know, they're going to have a heart attack. I'd rather have a heart attack than have a doctor telling me I'm going to have a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
But what I try to do is make it a very painless process. I mean, you know, there's ways to go and look at the information and always find a positive spin to it. I mean, you know, I would say in most cases, people I meet with, I can't remember a time when it was like a blow the person out of the water. You know, you're so screwed. Like, you should have done something way long ago.
Sure.
I mean, if they have the gumption to ask me for a meeting to talk about it, that usually is an indication that they've already put together some things to be able to be well on their way.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, it is scary because you think, well, gosh, you know, what kind of, but I think people make things up in their mind about what things cost and what, you know, they're trying to compare their life now to when they're going to be retired. And so there's a lot of things they just miss, you know, and so that's what my job is, to sort of, you know, bring all, well, remember, you know, you have Social Security, and remember you've got this pension and how that's, you know, and you start looking at how all of those things play in to each other. And, and if we make a few changes on this side of the house and we set some guaranteed income up for you, you know, for 10 years from now, it's a good thing you came in now because we've been able to establish that, and so here's some guaranteed income opportunities that we're going to take. And then all of a sudden it looks like, well, I didn't realize any of this stuff. I was just kind of making it up in my head, like, everybody says you got to have $1 million to retire. I mean, I don't know, is it? I always bugged me. You know, my dad used to say that when I was a kid. You got to have $1 million. You know, now it's like you got to have $2 million. That's just all pixie dust and stuff. That does. What does that mean? What is that?
I've said it before. We imagine a lot of things that probably just aren't true, and I think it prevents us from doing a lot of things because we perpetuate this idea in our mind that it's going to be a negative outcome or a negative experience, and so we just don't do it. And one of the fears that I had initially was, what's the upstart cost? Is it going to cost me money to make money? And you know, people right now anyway, myself included, the disposable income just ain't around like it used to be, right? Yeah. So now you're trying to figure out, do I invest now so I don't have to invest later? And is there an upstart cost to finding somebody like you that somebody can talk to and kind of get their ducks in a row?
Well, no. I mean, yes and no. There are a lot of firms out there that go down the track of putting together financial plans, and you know, I do financial planning here, but I do it as a means to an end, meaning I can't really give you the information that I need unless I have the information that I would need to put in a financial plan.
Sure.
Now, if I'm a true to form sales guy, I'm going to put that in an 80-page document and charge you $5,000 for it.
Okay.
So there are companies that will do that,
Sure.
and the 80 some page document is really fancy and everything. But the problem is that if it's not continually updated and continually massaged, which most people don't want to do, then it's really just a document that you have, and I've just never been a big believer in that. So the upfront costs, the startup costs, you'll see that with some organizations that will want to do the financial planning, especially if they think that you don't have a lot to invest in.
Sure.
And they're trying to do the business how they do it. But other than that, no. I mean, when you in my side of the business, I'm a fee only advisor, so a fee based advisor. So
You make money if I make money.
right? Yep.
So I got a short list of like what I feared about this whole process, and I want to see if it aligns with what you see out there too.
Yep.
What do you think people's biggest hurdle is in just getting started with investigating how their investment strategies or dipping their toe in the investment strategy world?
Not looking stupid.
Okay.
Pete.
All of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you don't want to be the guy that's in the room and you're learning about things for the first time that you think, maybe I should have known this when I was 12.
But the thing is, though, we're in a room full of those people, and we do this every day.
Yep.
Where you're afraid to ask the question because you don't want to sound stupid. Meanwhile,
Right.
There's 18 other people in the same room wondering the same thing you are.
Exactly.
And then we all just sit there quietly and go, well, I don't want to ask that because I might sound real dumb. Meanwhile, everybody's like, I don't want to ask it because I might sound dumb. It's the same question, right?
Yep.
And it's interesting how often. It's interesting how often we find that out, but usually later. And it's always in side discussions. Man, I really wanted to ask how, what mode of the ventilator I was supposed to use in this, but I don't want to be dumb. And somebody was like, well, I wanted the same question. And then you realize that everybody's on the same page, so just ask the question. So mine was that, like, I feel like it was something I should know, but I didn't know. And then 2 was, well, what if I take all this money to Chris and he looks at it and he giggles because the number is so low that he can't believe that at my age I have so little money to invest in it. The upstart cost was, how much money is it going to cost me now? And then the other fear is if I give Chris my money and he loses it all, then what happens? Is that a reality? Like all this money that's in the IRA could just poof and go away?
Be a pretty catastrophic event.
Sure.
I mean, we had 9/11. We saw a lot of dollars leave,
Yeah.
a lot of accounts, and we had that during other times in our investing careers. It's to answer your question. If all the money in your IRA disappeared, we're not even thinking about our IRAs.
Okay. We got bigger problems, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
We're trying to make sure we got food on the table and
Yeah.
everybody's got their heat bill and that kind of stuff. We're
Bottled water and duct tape, baby.
Yeah.
And that's
start putting those coffee cans in the backyard buried
Right.
and mark them, every one of them. I got you.
so there will be some years where your accounts do really good, and there's going to be some years where you're going to have down. I mean, 2022, was kind of a rough one, but here we are in 23. We've made up for that, and then some. I always, with my clients, we always look at things on a 3-year rolling average, and try and hit those bogeys depending on where the clients are in their return and risk perspective. So it's having money in the areas that money's always moving, and it's always looking for the most amount of return for the least amount of risk.
Yeah.
So there's an element there that where you've got some risk on assets and risk off, and so in my entire time in the business, I've never seen anybody lose all the money in their IRA. Now, I have seen people invest in highly speculative things. They knew it was highly speculative when they got into it, and they knew it was either a home run or going to be a zero, and some of those turned into zero.
That's a gamble.
Right.
That's putting all your money on black.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's like a pharmaceutical bet, or something like that. And but again, people know what they're getting into at that point. But for most of us regular guys, we're not investing in those things.
Can people just start this from scratch? Like
Sure.
if they've got $5,000 sitting in a coffee can in their backyard, can they bring that to you and say, what are my options with this cash?
Yep, they can do that. Again, IRA, Roth IRA. I think for 2024 it's 7,000 for under age 50 is the maximum you can put into IRA. Maybe 7,500 if you're above 50. I can't remember. It changes every year. It might be 7,500 is the minimum or maximum. But anyway, yes, people can do that. The goal there is to always try to. I say yes, but again, what is the expectation of the client? What I'm talking about, me personally, when people come into my office. Now, if they're looking to turn this 7,000 into 23,000 a year from now, I'm probably not your guy.
Sure.
I'm realistic in my in my results, and tripling your money in a year, that's not. I'm not capable of that. So.
Low and slow, baby, just like a crock pot.
Right. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Singles and doubles.
Yeah.
Occasional triple.
Get you in the Hall of Fame every time.
Right.
The other thing I thought of too, like one of the fears is like, I just don't know what you're selling me, and so if I don't understand, if somebody doesn't understand the verbiage and the terminology, and you sit down with somebody, I'm always slightly, I understand business, and this I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying anytime you go somewhere, do you feel like you're getting sold something from a used car salesman?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you give me your money, wink, and I'll make sure that you get your money back tenfold. And then somehow something catastrophic happens, and then you never hear from somebody again. Like that, I think that's a real fear of giving a large sum of money over to somebody to manage behind the scenes. Like we're getting on 45 minutes, and we'll probably start. We probably need to start wrapping it up, but it doesn't cost anything to have the conversation, right?
That's the whole. That was exactly the thing I was thinking in my head. No, it doesn't, and you should never go talk to a financial advisor and feel like you should never feel like, I need to make a decision. I try to do. Do some initial discovery, put together kind of a general map, a roadmap, if you will, and then give that information, and then that's really it. I'm probably gonna follow up with you at some point to see if you had any questions. But people, there should be no hard sell in this industry at all. And if you're getting a hard sell from somebody in this business, you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
So, it should be, and it may take you 2 or 3 meetings to really understand what's going on, and even when you start, guess what? 6 months from then, you're going to have to go through it again. There's clients where I've got to describe this stuff every year,
Sure.
A couple times a year, like just to remind them of, what's it? Because again,
it's a foreign language.
It's not their area of expertise.
Yes.
It's not what they're thinking about every day.
Right.
And so, yeah. You want to find somebody you can trust. I think you want to make sure that you're talking to a financial advisor that where there's a dog in the hunt there.
Sure.
Because the days of going into your local brokerage house and just picking up some mutual funds, the guy earns a commission, throws it up on the shelf. This is what was going on before 9/11, and I think we started to see a shift in our industry as a paradigm shift where guys are going, what is really motivating this person to look over my stuff? So they sell me some mutual funds. They earn a commission. They throw the stuff up on the shelf. But should I be making changes?
Yeah, sure.
And if you're an individual that those questions are popping in your head, you need to think about who you work with.
Probably should have somebody in your pocket that you can ask those questions to.
Well, they should, at bare minimum, yeah. But they should probably already be communicating with you about the things that are going on in the markets and the economy, and you can pick and choose what you want to consume.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, that night we talked about this on the fence at the football game. I was real hesitant to ask you because you just never know how people feel about giving free advice, right? Like, you got a buddy that's an electrician and you're picking their brain about how to wire their garage. They're not making any money by giving you this thing, but you were very, the conversation was great. You're very welcoming. You were very forthright with the information. And we sat down in November, had a meeting. I brought you all my numbers, and I said, this is what our options are, and you were great. And you were like, listen, man, I'll handle it. And since November, I check the only time I ever check my account is when I get an email that says I have a new statement.
Right.
And every time I log in, I got a green number.
Yeah.
So I would imagine we're moving in the right direction, and that's been the extent of my involvement since I've done it. And I couldn't have been happier since we had that talk and I had that first meeting. And I think it was certainly the right move for what I'm trying to do was get somebody to manage my stuff, and it's been great. So thanks.
Yeah, I know we're on air here and everything, but you're gonna get a statement with the red number. I mean,
sure. Right, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, so far it's been green, and I don't know anything about this business, but I got to think green is good, red is bad.
It is, but you're going to have some reds in there.
Sure.
It's just naturally it's just bound to happen. So
we used to log into our at work our 401k and see like it was down $3 or whatever like that, but and that was just because you got an email and you're like, well, I'll go check it out. I don't really know what it means, but whatever, and we would do that. So. Let's wrap this up. How do people find you?
Yep. So the phone number 515-447-0559. Pivot Wealth Strategies. My office is on Nowkinnick Drive South in Adel. My email address is Chris, CHRIS, at pivotwealth.com. That's PIVOT Wealth, WEALTH.com.
Great, man. I tell you what, this has been a great conversation. It really worked out. First guest episode, great information. You happy with it?
Yeah, I think so. I have to listen to it. But
Monday morning at 5 a.m. is when it's going to air, buddy. So that's when it goes live. So
excellent.
At Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So check it out then. All right, if that's it, we're going to wrap it up right now. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change Podcast. As always, look for updates on our Instagram page at talk.shiftchange on Instagram, and email me with any questions, problems, concerns at talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone.